Grief doesn't end just when tears stop, and healing doesn't mean forgetting. In this part two of the grief series, I, Dr. Griffin, will be talking about how to move beyond pain into what most of us often go through and ask deeper questions that grief awakens. And that is questions like what happens after we lose someone we love? Where do they go? And how can we keep living when our heart is still holding on to the loss? So, in this episode, I'm going to explore hope, healing, and the afterlife, including spiritual practices that bring us comfort when words fall short. I'll talk about how grief is not just an emotional experience, but it's also a spiritual journey. So, if you've been someone searching for peace, meaning, or reassurance after a loss, this episode is for you.
He placed this voice within me, and I'm answering his call. I choose light when life feels broken. I choose faith when hope feels small. This is my destiny to speak healing, hope, and love. Yeah, I've answered his call.
Welcome back to another episode of The Bad, the Ugly, the Good, and Healing You. I am your host, Dr. Jenita Griffin, and I just wanted to say I am so grateful to be here today. I am so grateful that people have been subscribing to my channel. I appreciate you. So, in this episode six, and it's part two of my grief series, we're going to be talking about the good. Not that there could be good in our loss, but we're going to talk about how to live with that, how to live with the loss, how to live with carrying your remembrance of that person as you go about life in a healthy manner. In part five, episode five, we explored the bad and the ugly, the weight of loss, the stages of grief. We also explored what happens when grief goes unprocessed. So, today, again, like I said, we're going to be talking about the good because I believe that, again, the good is not that the loss happened, the good is actually the healing process and knowing that healing is possible. I do want you to hear me and understand this loudly and clear. Healing doesn't mean you stop loving the person. Healing means you accept the person has transitioned and you learn how to live again. And I cannot express that enough. Healing means that you learn how to live again. As I mentioned in part one, I said, for me, time doesn't heal all wounds, as the old saying would go. For me, losing my mom was just more of with dealing with time. Time just helped me accept that she has transitioned and it just helps me carry it in a healthier manner as time goes on. But take it from me, I understand that you will, in some ways, especially when it's a parent, a child, a spouse, that would be a void within you. And you just learn to carry it to where you are moving forward with life as that person who has transitioned on would want you to. So you just keep going and moving forward. So let's talk about the good in healing through grief. The good is that grief is love. I feel like grief is love with nowhere to go. And when we grieve, it means that you just loved deeply. So I just wanted to remove the shame from the grieving process because I feel like there's nothing wrong with missing that person. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Even years and years as time go on, there's nothing wrong with it. Again, I cry out to my mom today in moments where I may miss her and or something may remind me of her. It happens, but it doesn't keep me there. I acknowledge, I process, and I move forward. I'm aware that, at least for me, some losses change you permanently, especially when it's, again, a close relative that you spent majority of your life with or all of your life with to that point, and they're no longer there. The good is learning how to see a future without that person and learning how to celebrate and take any lessons, take any things that you may have learned from that person and make it a part of you in that you are moving forward with remembrance and feeling as though they have brightened and lightened your way, your existence in some way. So again, I feel like a lot of times some losses can change you permanently, and that's okay. I feel like that is the dance that life has with love. Another good in that some people can have what we call continuing bonds, and oftentimes we're taught to let it go, to move on, and to you're taught to not allow that relationship that you had with that person. We're taught to, I don't know, it feels like in some ways to put it in a box, but you must address it. You must address it. You do let go in some ways, but you don't let go completely. There is nothing wrong with having what we call continuing bonds, where you are holding on to that person in a sense where you are celebrating their life and you are remembering the relationship and you are just being healthy overall in your process with grief. Okay. And the other thing is, I don't see why you couldn't let go of the concept of their physical existence and knowing that it is not present, but you understand that there are spirit energies around you of that person, and knowing that, why couldn't you just continue the bond and still live on knowing that you can speak that person's name or honor their memory, keep traditions, and continue to do the things that you love doing with them, because I feel like love doesn't disappear. It just transforms into different energies. And again, it depends on what you believe in terms of where the person goes in the afterlife and everything. You hold on to that and you just move forward and take it one day at a time, as I tell most people. Okay. And speaking of afterlife and everything, there are several different concepts, several different beliefs in terms of religion, in terms of what people believe what happens. Some people find comfort in healing and hearing about the near death experience stories. I, for one, I feel like after my mom passed, I wanted to know everything there was. I wanted to know everything there was about death and just the near death experiences. I was into it one span. I was, of course, the scriptures, the Bible, but I just wanted to know everything. And there was part of at one point in my life, in my career, I wanted to just work for hospice. I wanted to be with people as they transitioned. I'm not sure if that is weird or not, but I found that I just wanted to know more and more, and I wanted to sit with people who were transitioning and hear their life stories, if you will. I wanted to do that, okay? Some people also find comfort in simply knowing that that other person has changed me, and this is how I carry what I've learned from them. There are other people who look at signs, dreams, and many people report that their dreams feel real. They have visions. They sense their loved ones. They find peace unexpectedly when they are grieving at a level that is not productive. Some people talk about how they found peace unexpectedly, instantly. And it's like a light switch, and it just switched where they were okay. They felt comfort in some ways. in seeing signs. And I feel like seeing signs that feel meaningful as a psychologist, I'll say this is not uncommon. It is not automatically unhealthy. It is often part of the mind and heart trying to stay connected to that loved one when people talk about seeing signs. And of course, it can go into religious beliefs and people practices and everything, but people talk about seeing signs. Now, I want you to understand, and I want to just simply say that many people think, but don't always feel safe saying out loud, talks about the afterlife. When someone dies, I feel like it's natural to have questions and wonder things like, where did they go? Are they okay? Do they still exist? Or will I ever see them again? These are common questions that we ask ourselves. Some people believe when people pass away, their souls go to heaven, their soul returns to God, the spirit becomes a presence, an energy form. I myself can only speak about what I know about in terms of my religion. And again, I'm Christian and I believe in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And we as Christians believe that death is not the end. Death is a transition and not necessarily a conclusion, an end thing. Scriptures to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, Second Corinthians 5:8. And that simply means that when someone in Christ's eyes, they are with God, they are safe, they are whole, and that they are no longer suffering. I believe that heaven is real, and we look at reunion with that loved one and restoration. We look at heaven being with God to include like freedom from pain, having peace, wholeness, experiencing joy without interruption. We believe in death is not the end, okay? There are also people who believe in reincarnation, okay? So when I say reincarnation, yes, I went through a phase with this as well. And just hearing so many stories that people, I guess, put on the internet and everything. And some real life stories also, in that people remember their past lives and they're saying that reincarnation is just the belief that the soul continues after death and it may be reborn into another life, simply meaning because death is not the end but a transition. And to be born again, we're striving to become whole, to become that one body. And so you're put back on earth over or different places. You're put back to where you can strive to become whole. So again, I went through that phase where I was looking into reincarnation. I was looking into just hearing so many fascinating stories. I used to think I was Cleopatra because I feared snakes so much, and that I was a very young child where I started having these night terrors of snakes, and I said, "Hey, I must have been Cleopatra in my past life, and, the snake bit Cleopatra, and that's how she passed," or what have you. But, of course, no. Someone said, "You were probably the maid," but okay, that's neither here nor there. But again, when someone passes, we it's normal to ask yourself questions. It's normal to get into that deeper level of wanting to know, where did they go? Are they okay again? And where does this where does the love go when their soul is gone? I feel like with the reincarnation theory, it can bring comfort to a lot of people again and suggest that the soul is eternal and that it lives on in spite of, and that the love we share with that other person, that love continues beyond the body, continues beyond the body. Okay. So reincarnation can bring comfort because it, like again, it suggests the soul is eternal, love continues beyond the body. separation, and separation may not be permanent. Death is change of form and not the end of your soul's existence. It could also bring, give meaning and hope and spiritual continuity, but it can also, if it's someone who uses reincarnation as a bypass to not grieve, it can also hurt that individual. For example, saying things like, don't cry, they'll be back. That can be dismissive and not allowing that person to process that grief. Okay. A healthier spiritual framing would be more like, even if the soul moves on, a healthier framing would be that even if their soul continues, your pain is still real and love still misses. So you have to acknowledge and process your grief, no matter what religion, no matter what you believe in terms of reincarnation and afterlife. Okay. Some people believe in heaven, some believe in ancestors, some believe in so many different things. But one thing we all share is that when we lose someone we love, our heart asks spiritual questions, and that is no doubt. Grief is emotional, but it can also be a spiritual process. Okay. When you're grieving, you don't just mourn the person, you start questioning life itself. So it's not just questioning death, it's questioning life itself. I can remember, me, what is the meaning of all of this? My mom lived a life. She had trials, she had obstacles, and she worked hard for her children, and she did so much, and she's gone. She went just like that. And knowing what I know in terms of purpose and meaning and striving towards wholeness, I look back at her life and not knowing, just from afar, being another person, looking at her life and what's the meaning of all of this? I don't feel like she became whole, but how do I know that? She could have got exactly what she needed in this lifetime and moved on, and she's whole. Okay. So I say that to say that whatever you believe regarding the afterlife, I need you to just remember, no matter what, you have to feel, you have to process your grief, you have to go through the process. Do not keep it stuck, do not keep it to yourself. Again, find a safe place, safe person, and talk with someone about it, because it is important in order for you to be able to carry it healthy, in a healthy manner throughout the remainder of your life, is that you deal with it. We don't deal with things, you guys. We don't deal with things. We kind of stuff it and keep going. No, we are spiritual beings, and we have the capability of healing ourselves. We just have to sit with it and be still and do what we already know. Do what we already know. Now, I want to just speak with you in terms of two therapy based interventions that I may talk with or process with my clients. And the first one is grief narrative. Grief, I feel, as I said before, grief becomes heavy when it's trapped inside and it's nowhere to go. It's there and you're stuffing it, and stuffing it, and you're not getting it out. You're not processing it. You're not acknowledging it. So, one thing I would do, and again, I am not your therapist. I am just someone who encourages you that if you are dealing with grief to this caliber, that you look for a safe space and a safe person to talk with so that you can process. I just want you to know of what it could look like, in that therapy works and it is very helpful. But with the narrative, it's just exactly what it sounds, telling the story. It just tells the story. What happened, first of all, with the loss? Questions like, what did you lose? What did it mean to you? Do you miss that person? Do you now fear? What do you need? There are often journal prompts that I use. What did the loss change in me? And what do I want to carry forward? So, those are some things that I would use as a journal prompt. But the objective is to get that person to tell their story about loss and looking at the good and the bad in the relationship and learning lessons, taking what they've learned from that person and just becoming whole with it and moving forward to where you are celebrating and not missing in terms of the absence and the void that you feel and you're harboring on that negative piece of it, but you are more happy that you've had that experience with that person. Again, if you are grieving at a level where it's debilitating for you and it's, as I said in part one, it could look like depression and it becomes clinical. You do want to talk with someone. It is okay. It is okay to have support. I always say, no one gets anywhere in this world alone. We need to debunk the therapy myth right now because it helps. It helps. And we need to teach our children that it's okay to ask for help and that we are all human and we have human emotions. And in order for you to get through whatever life situation you're going through, it's important that you acknowledge it and you ask for help if you need. The second one intervention is a continuing bonds letter where you write a letter to your loved one, not to just force closure, but to just release what your heart still holds and just talking to that person. I'm not going to tell you when I first lost my mom, I may have went to her site and I know that it was just a shell maybe multiple times a week. And it wasn't the fact because I knew she wasn't there. I knew it was just her shell, her body, but it was just the fact of being close to that physical part of her when she was here. And I say that to say that that helped me in my grief process and being near her. And as time went on, I found other ways to cope and deal and carry the loss to where I didn't have to spend so much time at the graveyard. Okay. And when you are doing the continuing bonds letter, you want to ask a journal prompt question again, not to force closure, just what you wanted to tell that person. You do want to include that in the letter as well. Okay. So I wanted to also give you some practical tools within, let me turn my glasses, some practical tools within this part two healing segment. And the first one is when you have a loss, you have to name the grief. You have to say, I am grieving, and you have to name it. You have to acknowledge it. You have to sit in it, breathe in it, process it, go through the process when you have a loss. Another thing people can do is schedule a grief. I know that's easier said than done. The objective is not to cry your eyes out 24/7. Not even to compartmentalize, but to also just find time and schedule it to where it will slowly get better as time goes on. Scheduling your grief session, if you will. I feel grief needs space and it's something that should not be avoided. So you do want to go through your grief process. But if you find that you're someone who, and again, obviously, after the loss, no one can tell you when you should stop grieving. No one could tell you what is normal, what is abnormal to me. You go through your process. But if it leads to where it's months and you're 24/7 still crying out, still carrying it so heavy to where it's looking clinical, you gotta look at changing that. right? Because at the end of the day, I always say, what would that person want for you? How did you see them deal with loss when they lost in while they were living? Okay, another thing is to just celebrate the life of the person. I oftentimes anniversary, birthdays, I light a candle, I say prayers, take a walk, and just have a memory reminisce segment. Do a memory book, play their favorite music, but do things to commensurate to just have in memory of that person and celebrate their life, I should say. The other thing is you have to protect your peace from grief pressure. Again, no one can tell you how to grieve and what is normal, what is not normal. And again, I feel like we have the capabilities of healing ourselves. A lot of times it just takes acknowledging, it takes understanding, and it takes processing and knowing who you are and how to get through, right? You know what works for you. No avoidance, you're looking at how to sit with it, process it so that you can live a healthier life as you go through. Okay? But you have to protect your peace. Not everybody is safe when you grieve. Some people rush you, some people dismiss you, some people may pressure you to move forward. But I want you to know that it is okay to say, I am not ready to talk about it. Okay. It is okay to say that. I want to say initially, per se, but again, I know everybody has their own timetable, but when it gets to months and months and years, and that's where, and the person still doesn't want to talk about it, that's when we need to look at a different perspective. Again, I tell people to take it one day at a time and what is best for you. But at the same time, you have to also look at how you can live beyond the grief as you go throughout your life in a healthier manner. So it's okay. It's okay to say, I need support, not pressure. It is okay to cry out for that person. It is okay to grieve and go through the grieving process. And much of it that I spoke about is about transitioning and not necessarily when it comes to, say, a breakup or a divorce. That's that's a loss. Those are losses, but those are losses that we have to look at handling in a different manner when it comes to how to live and how to move on forward from that. Some people, it can be quite difficult after a divorce or losing health. It can be quite difficult. So it's the point of how can I live the best version of me with this health condition or without that person in my life knowing that they're still here on earth. Okay. So that completes the part two and looking into the good with healing as it relates to grief. But I just want you to know that healing means you accept the person has transitioned and you learn how to live again. That's what healing essentially means. And you learn how to carry that person, that grief, that void with you for the remainder of your life in a healthy way where it's not debilitating you and you are still moving forward, thriving to being the best that you should be in this lifetime. Okay. And if you've listened today and you are carrying a loss, I want you to know there is nothing wrong with missing that person. There's nothing wrong with missing your loved one. You are not broken because you're grieving. You're not weak. You're not behind. You are healing. And as we know, grief changes you, but it does not have to destroy you. It does not have to keep you stuck. We want to look at how we can move forward and be healthy and whole as you go throughout your journey of life because you can still build a life. You can still smile again. You can still love again. You can do all of those things. You just have to look at how to go about addressing your grief and what knowing what works for you. And again, if you are grieving in a manner where you should have some additional support, don't be afraid to ask for help. Do not be afraid to ask for help. Okay, and again, I know I covered a lot as it relates to grief through transition and death. There are many forms of loss, and I think I'm going to add another part to this series to where I could talk about those other forms of loss and how to move forward because I feel like grief shows up in many different forms and not just through deaths. There are significant other loss, such as like through divorce or broken relationships or health changes, your youth, even. We experience a lot of loss. And what do? Is one thing you have no other choice to but to move forward with carrying grief through death. But what do you do when the person is still here or when you have to live your life and they're still here through divorce? Or what do you do when you have a health condition and you are no longer able to do the things that you used to do? That's a loss. And so I think what I'm going to do in episode 7, I will continue this series and talk about the other forms of loss and how we can heal and work and get through those trying times. Okay, that is all for today. I am Dr. Jenita Griffin. And again, I appreciate you tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And please also comment on my channels. If there's a topic that you want me to talk about, please don't hesitate to inbox me. And future guests wise and everything, I am getting that together. And hopefully also next week I will be able to have my full shot again with my camera being fixed. Okay, so again, signing off. Love you. Be good to you and expect great things for you. Until next time.
He placed this voice within me, and I'm answering his call. I choose, and I'm answering. He placed this voice within me.